Welcome, guys, to another episode of the Kristian Buddys podcast. I am now with Andrew Miller from Wakefield, England. How's it going today, Andrew?
It's good, thanks. Yeah, going well.
All right, fantastic to have you on the podcast. And just a bit about your background. You are a business coach. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the correct?
If you want to lump me in a box, we'll go with business coach. But I try not to use the phrase too much because it's one of those nebulous things that no one can really agree what it means. But in that kind of space, personal development of people and things, yeah.
Yeah, I guess nearly everyone's a business coach these days, but I guess you're more a specific niche, so I appreciate that. And what made you transition into this field? Because it sounds like, just from first impression, that you weren't enjoying your 9-to-5 job, and now you've transitioned into something else.
It was one of those things that, a lot of people experience this. They go through the normal process of life. They go for education and then they go for the career and that kind of thing. And like most people, I came out of uni not really knowing what I wanted to do, just kind of fell into something. And I actually became an insolvency practitioner. Underneath that, I had to do the accountancy exams, hooray. But it was actually a really good experience. So insolvency practitioner's job is to, or the bit I had anyway, was taking control of companies when they'd gone bust.
Okay.
So the bank takes possession, they appoint an accountant. And so basically my job was to run businesses for the best part of 15, 16 years. And it's actually quite exciting when it happens. And there can be a lot of stress around it, but then we've got the admin and the red tape and all the rest of it. So it's one of those things, once you got into it, you just cracked on with stuff. You didn't really think about it, you just moved on. And I was progressing well, but it was just this moment when it was after a point where I got promoted, and we had this event to sort of celebrate what we were doing. And there was someone there that was running this sort of classroom activity, and it turns out he was a coach. I didn't know that at the time. I'd never heard the phraseology before. But he did one of these exercises, which is quite common now, but it was basically write down on a bit of paper your values, the things that are really important to you in your life. And then on another bit of paper, write down the values of the firm that you work for. Not the ones they've just stuck on the wall in laminate, but the ones that you actually perceive as the real values. And the idea was that we would then try and bring them closer together. And I wrote them both down and I looked at them and I thought, you'd have thought at least one would be the same. And it was just so out of kilter. And it was just that moment when, oh yeah, I hate what I do. And like the rest of the class, rest of the weekend was just this sinking feeling of going, I don't want to be here anymore. And or looking back at all the things that I'd done differently, I'd worked abroad and I'd worked in different areas and that kind of stuff. It's like, actually, that was me trying to get away, and I never really recognized it. But instead of leaving, I just changed what I was doing. Suddenly I realized, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds like that's a common theme with people who, I guess, leave into their own venture. And so you speak so I've read your ebook that you sent through, so I appreciate that. Thank you for that. And it was you speak about there's a three-step almost idea. So you have change. So for those of you that are listening, that Andrew has written an ebook. So the main idea is about money, or is about
the concept is of enjoying business. That's the key thing. So if you remember, I'd worked in that space where I was working alongside business owners who were losing everything that they had created and built. And so it made it really clear about how much we have this emotional attachment to the businesses we create. And so when our businesses fluctuate, we go through the same feeling with it. And when you're so closely attached to it and you lose it, like these guys are doing, it's like a bereavement. It's like losing a member of the family. So clearly these guys weren't enjoying what they were doing. That's when things go wrong. But then I wasn't enjoying my job, so the 9-to-5 thing wasn't working. I mean, when I first moved into the coaching space, it was to help these people that were going through the traumatic situation, help them deal with the stress and the emotional side of it, and help almost like a therapy type process of going through that and trying to see things in a different way and rebuild their confidence and all that kind of thing, because it's a huge traumatic thing. But then I was meeting other people in running their own businesses, and they were doing okay. They weren't at the bottom like these guys. They were doing okay, but they weren't enjoying themselves either.
Yeah.
I mean, they loved the thing that they do, but overall, they weren't happy. They were always moaning and complaining and stressed and that kind of thing. And I remember I was doing a number of interviews for various people, and there's one guy who, quite a young guy, he was clearly a millionaire. If not at that point, he was to be soon. He had his own business running. He had property investments. He had gold, silver going on, all this sort of stuff. He'd won awards of being the Entrepreneur of the Year, all these sort of things. He was going places. And I remember interviewing him, and I was asking him about what was important in business. One of the things he said was, "You've got to enjoy what you do." I remember very clearly saying that. You've got to enjoy what you do. That's what it is. I thought, well, that makes sense. And we dug further, spoke further, and eventually came out that every time his business dipped in terms of sales, he'd get worked up about it, get stressed. And it was so stressed that he was actually, once he started opening up, he was getting treated for stress, anxiety. He was actually being treated for depression and having counseling. And it's like, hang on a sec. If the most important thing in business is enjoying what you do, that's not enjoying what you do, is it? So yes, that thing is the thing you're passionate about. I get that, but there's something broader than that. And for me, there is an over reliance, or there's over emphasis on sales, profits, making money. And as an insolvency practitioner, I know, yeah, it's important, absolutely, but there's more to it than that. And when you only focus on one thing, that's probably all you're going to get. It's very easy to miss out on the other things. So for me, it's all about actually enjoying it, and that includes making money to cover the bills and make sure that you're not starving, because that no one's enjoying life if you're not making money.
Yeah.
It's all the other bits as well, having all the stuff on top of that and what that looks like.
Wow. Yeah, you touched on he's that young entrepreneur. It's kind of, from the outside it looks very glamorous and very attractive, but on the inside, you can see, and I'm a big advocate of mental health and meditation in specific. That's part of my daily routine. I know. So I practice meditation, and I think that from a holistic point, it's we can try and go out there and make as much money as possible and be in this materialistic mindset. But I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Obviously, as you said, we have to pay the bills. There has to be some financial responsibility. But I believe at the core level, we're all spiritual beings. I think, all we want to do is be happy, strong, and healthy, ultimately. So,
and this is the thing, when you speak to any individual, they kind of know that. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, as you say, it might use different words. Some people might not use spirituality in the same way, but I agree with you. But it might use different words. But at the end of the day, people have a sense of what makes them happy, and that's what they want. But we are conditioned, and we live in a society which doesn't accept that, or isn't fully embossed in with that. So we end up clashing between what we want and what everybody tells us we should be doing, and we start listening, and we go into business and said, you need to do this, you need to have a plan, you need to get sales, you need to be doing this, and it becomes overriding. And then we start beating ourselves up because we haven't hit our targets this month, or we're not doing as well as we should have been, and you see that person over there, and there it goes on.
It's a crazy cycle. It's I'm sure. Do you have any more experiences that you can share with the audience about, I guess, maybe something on a positive note, something that you've gone through, an experience that you've helped somebody? Is there any?
I mean, the thing for me is to sort of shift the focus away, and the true way of getting enjoyment is, for me, it comes down to purpose at the end of the day. So This is what the sort of the book runs through to a certain extent. So you need to put some things in place so that you're not feeling pressurized and stressed. So you do need to make sure you're looking after your bank balance, looking after yourself, both physically and mentally. Yeah. You can do things where you're working with the right kind of people. What we tend to do is pretend to be somebody that we're not. We're trying to be a different person, and then we attract the wrong kind of people because we're out of kilter. We're not being authentic. So we then wonder why we don't enjoy the people we work with, or the team that's supporting us aren't putting the extra hours in or helping us properly. So there's that. And then actually feeling value in what we do, and that knowing that we're doing good stuff. And then we get into that worry about self-worth and perfectionism and imposter syndrome and that kind of thing. So these are all things which we notice them when they're absent, we notice them when they're not quite right, but to get them better helps ourselves. We're in a better position. We've got more money on the table. We've got a good supporting society community around us. We've got feeling good about what we do and inner sense of worth. But that's all personal gain, which again is absolutely fine. You kind of need to do that to get your platform. But the key step is beyond that. And that's when you move into purpose. And purpose is something where you are clear, really, really clear about what your role is in life, where you're going, what you're looking to do, what your mission is, that benefits somebody other than yourself, but has real meaning to you. So everything is geared towards moving in the right direction of making something a better world for other people, and you know why it's important to you. And then every single step you take that moves in that direction, you feel good, you feel positive about it. So it's not a case of having to be somewhere at a certain time. It's just progression. And so every day it's that pursuit of that creates the enjoyment. So from my point of view, and I'll use that as an example because it's always best to go personal stories. Yeah. I crafted this idea that we were talking about business enjoyment quite a while, a few years ago, and realized that there's something in this. I'd speak to people and say, that makes sense. It spiked interest, and logically and rationally, I sort of got to the thing. Well, what I want to do is I want to change the way that success is measured in business. Because if you look at the Financial Times, the stock index and all that sort of thing, it's still based on how much money you make, sales profits, future profits, but essentially down to money. How do we change the measure of success in business? And I thought ways to do that. So it's all very logical and rational, and I totally got into the mission, but I didn't feel connected to it. I didn't feel like there was this sort of burning passion to do it. It's just like, makes sense. Sounds like a good business plan. And I could have gone with that. But what I need to do was look inside and understand me better and where my traps and problems and issues were, but at core who I was, and connect that with what my vision was, or my mission was, I should say.
And sorry, just for people listening, so I'm just trying to piece together what you're saying. So are you referring to your previous workplace, or are you?
So I mean, once I'd moved into the coaching space, that'd been a step forward, and then I'd wiggled and weaved in terms of the direction I was going. So I'd done I'd started off working with the people going through insolvency. That got to a certain level, but I got to the point where I was asked to be an advisor for government. I was looking at setting up this big campaign, but that sort of stalled, didn't go anywhere. And in the meantime, I wasn't actually making any money myself. So I branched off, and that's when I started working with other business owners. And I was collaborating with another coach, and we were just helping people improve their business. And I was always interested in the person. The business side can take care of itself in many ways. It's quite simple to get the business right. It's the person that causes we get our own way kind of thing. So
sorry to cut you off there. So you went your own way. That would have been a terrifying experience, because you're used to this financial income, steady income, but now I'm guessing that you're not getting the income anymore. So, it's not a timed income. It's not something that you can rely on. So
Oh yeah, I stepped away from a six-figure salary with potential. I was like being lined up for promotion, and I walked away from it to nothing.
That's a scary experience, and I think that's. Would you agree that that's maybe something that prevents people from doing their own thing or stepping in? Yeah.
We taking risks is hard, and again, because we are conditioned to sort of build for the future, to take safety, to make things all right. It feels dangerous to lose that. You know, if we take a risk, we'll lose everything we've built. Now, I probably should have left earlier than I did. It took me about 4 years from that revelation of I need to leave to actually get out. Part of that was because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was exploring I knew the away from, but I didn't know what the towards thing was. So it took me a while to find that out. But no, it was scary. And it was actually, when I was going through my coaching training, I remember talking to one of the other people on the course, and she just found out she was pregnant. She just walked out of her job, and she was going to go and set up her own coaching practice.
Wow.
And
she's got balls.
I thought, hang on a sec, right? I'm actually all right. I've paid off the mortgage in my house. I'm in a very specialized industry. If I step out of here, I can come back anytime I want in the next 2 to 3 years because I'll still be current. Might be in a different company. There's very little risk for me. So when I actually rationalized it and thought, oh, my wife was earning as well, so it wasn't like we were totally dearthing. So actually, I made it a very safe step away from it. Was as safe as I could, but it was still nerve-wracking, and then I was walking away from people I'd worked with for 10 years plus, and stepping away from that community and the people I got on with, and so into a lonely, lack of income, don't know what I'm doing kind of space. So you're kind of scrabbling to pick it up. So my journey over the next sort of 7 or 8 years was really finding out what worked, finding out how the business worked, but also at the same time finding my own personal journey as to who I was. So every step of the way, I'm discovering problems around me, things that I'm finding difficult, and I've got to work on those. And the more I understood myself, the more I could understand my business.
Okay.
So, and as I say, it all came together when I rationalized a lot of it. And I was at this event. It was an intensive, they call it, but set up by my coach, the international coach that I was working with. And we had this special section where we were going to go really deep and deep dive into to what's going on. And basically, we went through these exercises, and I had this flash up of an instance that happened when I was 4 years old, which I'd never really. It's one of those things that when it came up, I think, oh yes, I know this. This seems very familiar, but I couldn't actually remember having remembered it before. If that makes sense, it suddenly felt like it had always been there, but I don't think I'd actually thought about it for 20 or 30 years. It was a Christmas Day. And I remember sitting on the carpet with my family, mum, dad, brother, opening the presents as you do. And there was a moment my brother offered me a sweet. And at that point, I should have clued, because brothers don't offer brothers things.
Oh, it's a trap. It's a trap. Get out of there.
But I was young and naive, And I say it was a sweet. It was actually some chewing gum. Some gum in a box, and again that should have triggered things off, because I do remember querying it, saying I remember saying no, because I'd been told that, because I was young and my dad not allowing me to have chewing gum because it could block the throat and choke and that kind of thing. Yeah. But I looked at my dad and said, no, go ahead. Of course he was in on it, wasn't he?
Okay.
So I go for the chewing gum, go and grab it, pull it out of the pack, and whack, that spring, that joke thing, the spring comes out, whacks you on the thumb. And often we say in these sort of situations that it wasn't so much the pain, it was the shock that sort of sends you in. But no, it hurt, blooming hurt. And I'm this 4-year-old with this thing on my thumb, crying my eyes out, brother laughing his head off, dad laughing his head off. And so I turned to my source of support, which is my mum. And I was looking, give me that hug. I'm in tears and the rest of it. Turn around, she's laughing her head off as well. And it was from there that I realized that those little grains of habits had started building, and where I build up you put that wall in place. I'm crying and everyone's laughing at me, so I don't want people to see my emotions. So the emotional wall started building up, which was, to be fair, was really useful when I was doing like the insolvency stuff, because I can run businesses and not be emotionally impacted by the people whose jobs are being lost or at risk, or if I make somebody redundant, I can separate from it. So there's a use in it, but it's also blocking me in other areas. But yeah, so build up the wall. Lack of trust. So I'm gonna have to do stuff, everything myself. I don't rely on any other people. And a massive fear of rejection. And that I could see how that had held me back all the way through, because I became a people pleaser, doing everything to help other people because I wanted to be liked, and therefore I wasn't charging enough, and all these sort of things. And in the session, taking that, we then changed it around a bit with a sort of inner child work, where you imagine the kids there and you see your 4-year-old self. And I was sort of lifting him up onto my shoulders and running around the room shouting and pumping, look at this guy, it's amazing, all this sort of stuff. And and everyone else is doing their own thing. No one's paying attention because they're all doing their own kind of crazy shit. And it broke something. That wall collapsed. And suddenly this wave of emotion came running through, and I was just in floods of tears, just crying out.
Wow.
And I literally had a vision. And I don't mean in terms of a Joan of Arc, but I could see, all the things sort of came together and started playing out in my head. And I could see this sort of, it's like an animation, like very simple colors, orange and black. And in the background was the sort of industrial wasteland, flames going up and smoke and everything. And in the front was this black mass. And I realized after a while, after wiggling and moving black mass, that it was a bunch of people covered in with chains and holding them down, restrained and compressed. And suddenly this one chain breaks and this arm sticks out and starts breaking the chains. And this one person, who I'm going to assume was me, but this one person stands up out away from these chains and looks up towards a different place, somewhere else, away from the toil, away from the stress, away from the turmoil. Steps out, starts to walk away, but stops, turns around, reaches a hand down, and pulls the next person up, who then turns around and picks the next person up, and slowly everyone's led away to the promised land. And this is just going on. Well, they're wrapping up the thing and saying goodnight, and this is still going on in my head, and I'm just like, whoa. and it all came together. And it's sort of like, yeah, that's what it is. If I can help people break those chains, that social conditioning which has come from society around, and also for us, the change we've had as a kid, those little traps that have broken us and hold us back. If I can help people break them, then I can lead them to that path of enjoyment, help them get to the point where they can actually enjoy what they're doing. And if I can help other people, they'll help other people, and go from there. And it all just connected. It all just fitted. And that's from there, books written, websites going, communication, talking, and it shifted and changed. And suddenly the things that had been problems and challenges was stuff you just like, all right, well, it's just something to deal with. We'll sort it out, whatever the problem is, because I'm clear about where I'm going and what I'm doing. And when you're in that space, you're motivated, you're in the zone more, and enjoyment is a consequence of that. It comes out as a result of it, because you're clear about where you're going and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the key thing. When you can find that, then you've really got it nailed. And the line I use is it's like this lightning bolt for your body, and it hits all the thought centers you've got, because as you say, we're spiritual people. We don't just think with our heads, we think with our hearts, we think with our guts. And I mentioned in the book, I call them the brain, the tummy, and the soul, which of your initials are BTS, bits. And so I want people to enjoy their business so much, it makes their bits tingle.
My bits are certainly tingling at the moment. So thank you for sharing that. That was an awesome story. I really enjoyed listening to that. And yeah, previously in the interview, you touched on the stock market, and I've been dibbling and dabbling in this in the online stock market, and I guess, do you have any words for people who maybe are wanting to go down that way of their lives, like they want to maybe get into the stock market, or do you? I mean, I know this is not a financial podcast, but so I don't take this as financial advice. But look, it's just a bit of your experience. I'm just curious to learn your experience in the stock market. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, maybe my intention is to try and create a different measure so that we're measuring businesses on a different concept. But we have looked at the stock market and how to do it, and the key thing for trading, and there's different ways of doing it. So first off, learn your craft. That would be the key thing. Actually go and study and understand it, because if you just mess around, it's just a way of losing money at the end of the day, unless you're really lucky. But my understanding is that you've got to find a process that on average works, and you've got to stick to the process, because the thing that will screw you up is in your head. It's like any form of gambling. When you're on a roll, you think, I'll just go for another one. I'll just go for that big one. Yeah. And when you start losing, you sort of double back up the other way and all the rest of it. You find a system, and when it's time to stop, when you hit that level, you stop. You absolutely stop, even though you could win more money the next day if you went up for another trade or whatever it might be. But stick with the system and find a system that works, and go with that, and leave your brain out of it once you're in that space, because your emotions is what will mess you up.
Yeah, I think the worst thing to do is actually to have a massive I mean, it's not that bad having a massive profit, but from a psychological point of view, it can make us maybe a little bit more greedy. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that idea of following the process. I made a YouTube video of that, so I'm just cheekily plugging that in. So,
why not?
So yeah, because I actually used to play a bit of competitive tennis, and even in competitive tennis, there's an aspect of following the process. Before you serve, you step up. Not like Rafael Nadal, how he's got a wedgie or something. Like I'm talking like, yeah, you have to breathe, and you have to every point's the same. You have to treat every single point the same intensity, the same capacity to want to win the point. And I'm a big believer in following the process. And sometimes I don't want to, but I know that it's probably best to do that. Doesn't
Federer have the 3-step rule or something? If he makes a mess up, if he misses a ball, whatever, he's allowed 3 steps to be angry. And then
right,
once his 4th step, gone. That's it. You've had your chance. You've had your chance to get grumpy over it. Now switch back in. New point.
Yeah, I'm a victim of that as well. I get a bit too emotional on court sometimes when I lose a point, and I mean, the best tennis players, you never see them have any a little bit of emotion, but most of the time they're pretty calm and cool. Like Federer, he's the best example of that. Like he's just Mr. Cool himself, and I feel like if you can live life,
he allows himself that couple of seconds just to release the tension, and then he's back on it. So give yourself that moment. It's okay to feel bad and okay to mess up, and it's okay to feel right. It's when you dwell on it, the problem. And this isn't just tennis and sport. This is life. This is business. This is everything. We were so good at beating ourselves up when it's gone and when it's in the past and we can do nothing about it. So give yourself enough to release the energy, and because when it bottles up inside of you, that's not good. But so release it, but then move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I want to take the conversation into a different direction. So what does mindset mean for you? I know it's a broad term. It's a bit loaded, but I'm happy to listen to what your thoughts are on this. Take as much time as you want. What does the word mindset mean for you?
Well, I think you've got a very broad concept there. So, I mean, I talk a lot about mindset and what you need in order to enjoy life, be successful. But actually, your question takes that broader: is what is mindset in the first place? We've got kind of 2 levels of answer there, and I think mindset as a concept can be, as a broader sense, it's just the way our brain's wired, or the way it thinks. It's back to the process again. Is, you know, our brain is a set of steps and processes, and you know, beliefs and all these sort of things. And it's the way we react to certain situations, and how we think and how we cope and how we manage. And I sort of alluded to in the story, you know, throughout life, we get coded with certain things, because something will happen, we react in a certain way, it'll be good or it'll be bad, and we'll change our pattern to make sure we either get more good or less bad. It's just, that's, you know, a very simple process, but it gets very complex in terms of the things that we can achieve from it. And that serves us well as we are growing up. But then it becomes a point where our context shifts and we're in a different situation, and suddenly those resources don't work in the same way. And what we should be doing is changing the programming, but we don't. we usually keep running the same ones. And the things that served us well at 5 years old, we're still employing when we're like 25, 35, 45. And that's when we start, you know, suddenly realize, you know, getting in our own way, all these sort of things. So changing the mindset is critical to changing, to moving, to you know, I think there's a great book called Marshall Goldsmith called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's all about that concept of you've had all the skills and resource where you are right now as a result of everything that's happened in the past. But to be somewhere different in the future, you've got to do something different to get there. So you can have a mindset apply to all different contexts. It depends on what it is you're playing. So a sportsman's mindset, you know, Roger Federer's mindset, it will be different probably to my mindset, and it needs to be different, because I'm not playing tennis, and actually I don't want to be number one in the world. Which it might seem, you know, everyone keeps talking about you got to be the best of the best. Well, actually, no, you don't. To be, I mean, to understand how much Roger Federer sacrifices, or any of the tennis players, not just we use an example, but he's a good example, how much he sacrifices to be number one, we've got to make an active decision whether we want to do that. Truth of the matter is, in business and in life, we don't need to be number one. You know, top 20% is pretty damn good. You know, if we're rocking things well, we're making a difference, working with people we like, and we're putting food on the table and got a nice life, you know, what is wrong with that? You don't have to sacrifice a family life. You don't have to sacrifice friendships just because you'd be number one. So it's a different mindset. And so you've got to find what the mindset you need for what it is you want to achieve.
Wow, that's well said. Yeah, well said. Well said. Yes, I can sign that off. Yes, thank you. That's great. That's great. I enjoyed that. And yeah, it's funny how because I was speaking to another lady on my show, another plug. So I was speaking to like a life coach, and she mentioned that, to your point, yeah, you don't have to be the best in any one given field, and that's maybe something I've been a victim of. I've always felt like I could do things better, but I think it gets to that point where you become a bit of a perfectionist, and you're in this constant battle with your own mind, and it doesn't end well. So I'm learning to. Sorry.
There's a great distinction I came up with between perfection and perfecting. And perfection is that, you know, that perfection is the thing of trying to be something that will never exist, that you can never get to, or never being good enough, always reaching and reaching and reaching, as opposed to perfecting, whereas being happy with what you've got, but also being happy and making it better. All right, this is good. Oh, great. We can make it even better as well. Not with necessarily any destination or end in mind, and certainly not getting upset that you haven't reached a certain point, but being happy with what you've got and knowing you can make it better. And that difference between perfecting and perfection makes a massive difference in terms of how that has an impact on you internally.
Wow, that's a powerful, subtle shift. Yeah, that's really cool. So, do you mind if I ask you another loaded question? It's so this is another. So What does the word money mean to you?
Money is a conduit, it's a form of energy, it doesn't actually exist. It is something that we use as shorthand in order to get things to happen. Ultimately, it is a trade of perceived value. So if you, I mean, it would be great if we lived in a world without money, but that's not practical, not realistic. We've moved beyond that, but it's going to be interesting because, I mean, I thought back in 2008 when we had the collapse then that the recessions around then, I thought people might realize that this whole money things are completely made up, but they still bought into it. But we're getting close to that again. We could hit that stage again, but it's a resilient old thing. So it would be lovely to sort of say, oh, let's live in a life without money, but actually to interact with the society that we live in, we need to play the rules and play the game. Money is a measure of the value that you give, and ultimately something that you can use to access what you need. But it in itself is not a thing. There's one thing I would often run with people at the start of a presentation and business owners. It's like, who's in business to make money? And obviously there'd be some people that put hands up, and it's like, I only accept the answer yes if you work for the Royal Mint, because they're the only people allowed to make money, or any of the banks that, you know. But if you're a mint, you can make money. Otherwise, your money has to serve a purpose. Why are you earning that money? What are you going to get from it? What life? Who are you going to help? What lifestyle do you want? What do you want from it? It's a means to an end.
Wow. Yeah. Money's purely, I've always been of that impression. Yeah, money's a man-made construct. It doesn't exist. It's like it does exist, but it's like it's an idea in our mind.
We've all agreed to accept a lie.
Yeah.
You know, it started.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It started off as a very basic, we had the old bartering system, and I'll give you 2 chickens and you give me a grain of rice or whatever it might be. Grain of rice, that'd be a bit of poor trade. Bag of rice. The haggling out the window straight away. And then it's like, well, I don't want any rice. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll write a bit of paper that I owe you the value of that, and you can trade that with someone that does want rice. And so the concept of money started forming. And then the big leap forward was when we got into the concept of capitalism and growth, and you started trading for things that didn't exist, and the concept of something in the future, and then it became very theoretical. You know, I haven't got the money now, but I'll have it in 6 months' time. I'll give it to you then, or I'll give you a loan on that, and I'll pay you interest, and all these sorts of things happening. And then you're into the world, and then you're divorcing it away from those original fictional, actual things like goods and products. Most countries had it attached to gold, and they had behind the reserves. But there's America, UK, all they lost that decades ago. Yeah. So it's got to a point where we're no longer connected with what money was, and it's just a social construct that we all buy, and a lie we all buy into.
Yeah, wow, it's incredible. Yeah, we've been lied to. I'm going to switch gears now, and I can I can see do you mind explaining that in the background there? I can see you've got like not onto your left. Yes. Is that like a productivity chart or an organizational or
one of these magic
right
things, and I've just got it's a grid up. So I've got one of the things that I run are best discussion groups is probably the best thing. So I've got a membership organization where people get together on a regular basis, and we explore the business enjoyment model and make sure that they are successful in business, but also enjoying it at the same time. And we run through all the different stages, and that I've got a growth strategy around that. So on one side of it, I've got the actions I need to take in order to. I want to go do a lot of talks in places and have the attendees and calls from it. And then these are the results in terms of the different groups, different members I've got. So run by month. So it's just a visual clock for me, just check where we're
okay.
on each month and see how things are going.
Cool. Now I'm interested in all those little product. I thought it was like a productivity hack or like some. I guess it is. I guess it is. So, cool.
Yeah, it's a focus board. It's a chart. It's a tracker. It's whatever you want to call it, sort of thing. But
Awesome. Cool.
I got fed up using spreadsheets. Spreadsheet on the wall.
Oh, fantastic. And look, I think I might end the conversation here, Andrew. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And if my audience wants to connect with you, how can they do so?
Yeah, best thing to do is if they just go to my website, businessenjoyment.com. And when they do go on there, if they should be on the right-hand side, a little pop-up come up, and they can download the book we were talking about that I sent to you. So yeah, that means I get your email address. Wahaha! But I'm not. You'll get 4 automatic emails. Most of it's giving free stuff, extra stuff, and the book tells you about the breathing spaces I run. And the final email with an invitation to have a chat. If you want to talk further, then you can click on a button and we can set up a call and have a talk more.
There you go, guys. I would definitely recommend checking out that. And thank you for listening to the podcast, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. And thank you once again, Andrew. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.